to, if I'm like available, I like to actually try to jump on and address this kind of stuff. One, because I love what I do. I'm good at what I do. I have knowledge that I think can be very helpful to you, right? And I believe in all of this. I believe in science. I believe in manifestation, and I believe in your ability to use that I'm bringing you in such a powerful way to create. So don't worry, I think there's a little bit of a hiccup here. Yeah, so I'm going to actually talk about regret, emotional sensitivity, and I'm going to give you a technique, right? Yes. So musique, in fact, rather than saying you're trying to, say that you are. Like I have been a millionaire already, meaning you're talking to a millionaire right now, right? That's how you do that, right? And so again, you always want to talk about what you want to be in the past tense. You are, right? That is who you are. Are you with me so far? So again, all right, so what I want to do is I want to talk about regret. I want to talk about, again, kind of what we've been talking about over the last few days. Regret, letting go, emotions, emotional sensitivity, feeling, right? And all of that kind of good stuff. Because somebody was asking, actually 2 different people asked me about this. So, and Neville says, don't spend a moment in regret. Okay, now, when somebody says that, like what that sounds like is get over it. Right? Neville's not saying that, okay? He is not, and again, this is one thing I'm very adamant that we do here, meaning not only in this group, but when we're trying to understand manifestation, is first and foremost, and I'm going to explain some psychological concepts here, but hopefully this will add value to your journey in understanding this, okay? Your body, and this is Neville's words, is an emotional filter, okay? That's his words. Now, obviously, he's not the only one who coined that idea. You have William James, you have Sigmund Freud, you have Carl Jung, who actually influenced a lot of Neville's work, right? And if you're looking up Carl Jung, it's Jung, right? He was a Swedish dude. So, and in fact, Neville mentions him in his work, and Carl Jung ironically mentions Neville once in his work during his own journal journey, right? And in the Red Book and the Black Books, okay? So Carl Jung is very important to Neville's work, but it's also really important that you understand who these people are. Because when we're exploring things like emotions, when we're exploring the fact that you are an emotional filter, what does that mean? That means if you don't deal with those emotions, then what's going to happen? They need to find an outlet, right? So Freud talks about repression. And if you just jumped on, we're just jumping into what we do with regret. What if you have emotional dysphoria? What if that means you feel separate from your emotions? What if you have emotional sensitivity on the other end? What do we do with that? Because, right, this is really one of the things that manifestations is about is what? Emotions or feelings, right? And feelings are the interpretations of emotions. One of the things that I do is I differ very, very much with other Neville Goddard coaches in the way in which I understand emotions and feelings. Because even early on in my journey, people would get really upset because I would actually create a separation between emotions and feelings. And they would say, no, you're only manifesting from feelings because feelings is the secret. That's part of what Neville is saying. But he also does talk about emotions, and he does talk about how emotion, like our body, is an emotional filter. Okay, those are his words. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, and we're kind of going into a deep dive of psychology, right? Okay, so again, emotions are, and thank you, Musique, for this question. So to answer your question more specifically, emotions are your interpretations of the world, and emotions tend to be reactions. Okay, so emotions are the fuel or the energy, right? So, and I know we use this word a lot, but like emotions are energy in motion, and there's actually truth behind that, right? So emotions are energy in motion, right? But then they're also reactions to usually past events. So if you feel pain when you think of an event, check this out. You didn't just feel pain about that event. That emotion that you just had was interpreting the event that you had in the moment, right? So for example, if you got rejected at like an 8th grade dance, thank you for all of the hearts, right? And so then when you think about it, every time you think of rejection, then that means you have what? You have an emotional response that is in the past. So that means your emotion itself is a past record of an experience. Your emotions are a past record of an experience. So even if you have regret, it's a past record of that experience that brings you regret. So then what you do is you tie your emotion to regret. Okay? Are you with me? So again, you are not your emotions. Okay? Emotions are simply just interpretations of how something went down and how you are interpreting it. It is not the reality of what happened. It is only it is the thing that makes it feel like a reality. So emotions are those things that make it seem that whatever you're experiencing is happening and real and valuable. That's what an emotion is, okay? Now, there's a great book, and it's actually very neuroscientific, and it's called How Emotions Are Made. Okay, and I usually don't like refer to books all the time, but if there's any book that you really want to get to know emotions about, you need to go buy that book. Okay, it's called How Emotions Are Made. Don't worry, I don't get any money off of it. It's just a friend of mine, right, within this field. Okay. Now, I don't know her, I just know of her. So again, her last name is Barrett, if you're looking for the exact book. Okay. So again, what I want to do is I want to walk you through regret. What do we do with it? But again, to understand that, you have to understand emotions. And to understand emotions, you have to understand feelings. And then you have to understand what Neville means when he says feelings. Because feelings for him doesn't mean feeling. Feeling, by the way, is an interpretation. This goes back to your question, Musique, right? What is the difference between an emotion and a feeling? Because I differ. I do think emotions manifest, but I don't think that they manifest in the sense that, in the way that we understand emotions, okay? So, feeling is the secret means your interpretation of the emotion. So when you hear the word feeling is the secret, in Neville's work, it means interpretation is the secret, or perception is the secret, or the meaning you're giving things is the secret. Hi, Gen C, right? Very, very welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. So again, remember, feeling is the secret means interpretation of your emotion is the secret, because you can't have a feeling without an emotion. Another way of saying that is you can't perceive, you can't interpret without having an emotion. This is why for me, it's very important that people stop getting this, really be militant about quoting Neville. Well, Neville says feelings are the secret. Yes, he does, but he also says that we're an emotional filter, which by the way, so does neuroscience, so does behavioral science, so does psychology, so does Freud, so does Carl Jung, right? All these people within these fields talk about how we are an emotional filter. They also, and so does Neville, talk about repression, okay? Repression means I shouldn't be feeling this. I should feel bad. So like, for example, and people do this all the time, when they have a bad day, oh, I shouldn't be feeling it because I don't want to manifest it. That's really bad, by the way. That's really bad, and that creates more issues. Freud says this, Carl Jung says this, neuroscience says this, Neville says this. He even talks about it. He says, listen, if you have an emotion and you don't deal with it, what does he say? If you've read his work for more than 5 minutes, you'll run across this quote. And he says, if you don't deal with this, it is the birthplace of disease. Okay, so Neville differs from people like Esther Hicks, or from the typical law of attraction approach of like, hey, let's embrace toxic positivity. No, that is not what manifestation is about. Okay, if emotions were bad, you wouldn't have a story about Jesus weeping, right? And so again, you have to understand emotions aren't the problem. And yes, typically emotions don't manifest. Emotions fuel your state, which Neville calls a body of beliefs. So emotions fuel, right, a body of beliefs. Yeah, thank you, Musique, as well. Bashar as well, right? So again, when we're talking about regret, deal with it, respond to it, feel it, be angry about it, cry about it, rage about it. Yes, do it in a healthy way and don't rage at other people, right? Find a way, unless it's like your therapist and they're paid for you to rage at them. Or me, because that's my job as a coach. You can rage at me, right? But what you want to do is you want to find an outlet. Okay, and we're going to talk about a technique that you can use today. Because here's the thing, guys and girls and non-binaries, because I'm non-binary, right? Anybody here in this community, okay, or anybody that follows me knows that I'm very different in that I differentiate myself because I'm taking emotions as very, very serious. Okay. And so why? Because I think a lot of times we get taught in these communities, push them down, avoid them, ignore them, detach from them. By the way, ignoring your 3D, detaching from your desire, those are all misinterpretations. None of them are saying detach from your emotions, whether they're good or bad. Okay. Remember, emotions do not and will not ever be able to manifest. They are only used as tools to get you into the state, or tools to show you why you're not in the state. Are you with me? Raise your hand. Say, yes, Jesus. I'm kidding. So again, what I want to do is I want to, sorry, that's old church experience stuff. But anyhow, what I want to do is I want to talk about regret. Okay. And again, hopefully that was not too heady for you. If it was, ask questions and I'll definitely answer them. All right. But again, and I could go into this way deeper. I mean, this is my specialty. If you don't know, I'm trained from Harvard, right? In neuroscience, right? And so I understand what's going on in the brain, and I understand, and I haven't seen yet one coach in this manifestation world that uses this, okay? So let's talk about regret and why Neville says don't spend time in regret. Because regret is like time travel. And I'm going to explain to you why that, and it's a time travel you don't want, a trip that you don't want to take. Okay. But why don't we talk about neuroscience for like 2 seconds? And don't worry, if that freaks you out, I always try to make this as understandable as possible. Okay. So regret, one of the areas amongst the many, okay, in terms of where it works in the brain, and this is important, okay, is the prefrontal cortex. All right, now, so the prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain. It's like right around this region up here. You can even fact check me, right? And that area of the brain, amongst many other things, right, because the brain is multifunctional, is it works on your storytelling self. So everything that you tell yourself about yourself. So Neville says, watch your inner diet, right? Your mental diet, your inner conversations, okay? Guide them all the time, every day, for the rest of your life, right? Always. Guide them towards your end, right? Now, that's partially what's going on in your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the storyteller of your brain, okay? That's where you get your identity from. All right. So this is very important because when you hear the word regret, I want you to hear story. So when you're like, how do I get regret? Oh, hey, Jen, hopefully if you can't, make sure that you listen on playback. Would love to have you guys on more. I really appreciate you guys jumping on and taking time out of your day. So, one thing I would encourage you to remember is that when you hear regret, hear story. Because what you're doing is you are actually creating a story with regret. But you're not only creating a story, you're depending upon another story. So you're actually doing two things at once. Regret is kind of like a dual storyteller, okay? Right? And so the storyteller is that, hey, I'm in regret, which means I've done something wrong. I feel bad about this. Somebody made me do something. Or, hey, I went to the store. I was trying to manifest $1 million and I went and bought something that I thought was going to save me money because it, cost $3 less, right? And then you feel regret because you made this decision based on lack. Right? Or whatever it is. Or the same with like an SP or somebody that you're trying to manifest in your life or back in your life. And you're like, oh, I think I screwed it up. Right? And then you sit there in regret. Now, here's the thing to remember about regret. And this is why I call it a storyteller. Okay? Because regret needs a story. Are you with me? Hang on, let me do this because I don't mind an uneven tan, but you guys probably won't be able to see me. So regret needs a story. But then regret needs a storyteller. So guess who the storyteller is? That's you. That's all of the stuff that you keep churning and turning over in your head. Okay, the story is, hey, I did something wrong, and look at it, I can point to it. So remember, regret needs a pointer as well. So you need three things. You need a pointer, meaning you're pointing to what? You're pointing to a story. Okay, that means your finger. That means you're now, because the pointer is where you're putting your attention. So regret is about attention. Why does he say don't spend a moment in regret? Because you're then shifting your attention to what? Not only are you using the pointer finger, which is saying, look at that story. Now you're pointing to a story. And then guess what? Now you're actually not just a story seer or viewer, right? You're now the storyteller. Now you're saying, yeah, but look at this. Yeah, but look at this. Yeah, but look at this. And, if you followed my work, I apologize because I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I've said before. But there's a powerful verse in scripture and it says, let the dead bury the dead. And Musique, I'm sure you've heard this before. But in context of this is a very, very powerful understanding. Okay. What do you do at a funeral? What do you do? Right? There's usually a couple of events. And maybe sometimes funerals, depending on the culture or religion, they'll combine these two together. And so you end up usually having a wake, right? And then you end up having the actual funeral event. Both of those are doing what? They're telling stories about who? About the old person. Why do I say the old person? Because they're dead. They're gone, but you keep rehearsing the same story over and over and over and over. And I know you know where I'm going to go. You guys are really smart. So, right? And so again, regret is doing that. You're not letting the dead bury the dead, meaning your old story, your old self, whatever you're regretting is resurrecting. So in one sense, you love zombies, right? So that means you want the dead to come back to life. You want the old story. Now, I know, I get it. You're going to say, no, I don't. I get it. But listen, I'm going to explain to you why that happens, okay? So again, regret resurrects old stories. So if you're listening, put regret resurrects old stories. I know I give you all a lot to write, but regret resurrects old stories. But not only that, it resurrects old identities. Okay. So if you're telling a story about, oh my gosh, right? So again, this is why you let the dead bury the dead. You don't go tell your friends, you don't go tell your mom, you don't go tell your neighbor, you don't go tell your boss, you don't go tell your ex-boss that just fired you that you can't pay your bills, right? No. You're not that person anymore, right? So regret keeps you in the old story. Okay. Oh, thank you, Musique. You're awesome. So again, regret resurrects old stories, right? And so again, I need you to realize this because, the more that you keep telling the old stories, okay, the more that you will relive it. Remember, what did we say about regret? What does it do to the area of the brain? It upregulates the prefrontal cortex. And what does the prefrontal cortex do? That's the storyteller. So what you've just said is, hey, brain, this emotion of regret is so important. I need you to help me tell the story. Okay? Are you with me? So again, I need you to be very, very well aware. Now, what if you have emotional sensitivity? Because I said we're going to talk about that today as well. Okay, so we have the word like empath, right? Empath, I don't know if you are an empath, you don't have to be, or maybe you're on the other end where you're like, I don't feel anything. So like almost like emotional dysphoria, where you have like, I'm separate from my emotions, right? Or like emotional disorientation, okay? So again, remember, regret resurrects old stories. As I pinned Musique's comment, thank you for saying that and writing that. So again, what do you do if you're like emotionally sensitive? Or what do you do if you have what you might say too much emotion? One, you don't have too much emotion. Do not let anybody, I don't care if it's a parent, I don't care if it's a person that is looking back at you in the mirror, emotional sensitivity, right? Emotional sensitivity, okay? Emotional sensitivity just means that you're aware of your emotions. Okay, that's all that means. Do not let people vilify you or turn into a villain. And yes, Jen, by the way, I'm actually, I'm actually launching a private group with only 12 people. And it's a super private group and stuff like that, right? Oh, thank you, Red Hood, right? And so if you guys are interested, get in touch. I do coaching as well. So I know that you said you were looking for more information on that as well. I'm going to be doing more content, and I do weekly group calls every week, even one this Friday, next Friday, and so on. We're also doing a Bible study group you can join. All these, most of these are paid, but they're I try to make them affordable and all of that kind of good stuff, right? So again, thank you, Red Hood. That's really, really awesome of you. So again, back to this, because I really, 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 really want you guys to walk away with some information here, and really, really powerful information. And again, if you stay on long enough, which will be about another 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a science-backed tip that you can help, and that will help you get out of the cycle of regret, right? And so, Jen, you're talking about reliving everything, okay? We're going to actually kind of help you break that cycle, all right? And so, again, okay, so emotional sensitivity, remember, emotions are just filters. They're just filters upon. So happiness means you are what? You're experiencing the event through happiness. If you have a day where you're in awe, then guess what? You're filtering everything through awe. If you have anger, you have anger, right? It's a filter. Emotions themselves, and even Neville says this, like I said at the beginning of this, emotions are filters, and our body is the ultimate emotional filter. All that means is that you've been in an environment where you have learned to either hyper respect your emotions, or that you've learned to use emotional sensitivity as a way to control your environment. Okay, are you with me so far? So again, think back to your own childhood and see where you became, or where you can remember, maybe not exactly a moment, but where you can remember, okay, I noticed that I'm more emotionally sensitive in this particular, because sometimes what we learn and what we gain and what we think we are is really just a personality that we've developed to protect ourselves against threats in our environment, whether it be from our parents, our teachers, our society, our social groups, our religious groups, or any other thing that we have perceived as a threat. And so emotional sensitivity, there's nothing wrong with it. So don't hear that. Okay. I'm against the idea that like, oh, well, you just need to manifest stuff away. That's not helpful. And if you're a coach doing that, please stop. Like I completely disagree with that. You're causing more mental health issues than not. And I know I talk a lot about that on my channel, is because I see too many people in manifestation circles, whether it be Neville or Esther, where people get so confused and so bogged down and so depressed because there's so many labels around. No, you shouldn't feel this, and no, you shouldn't feel that, and you should only do this, and you should only do that. No, this is why I got into the coaching game, because I see too many people hurting, right? And so I'm very big on doing this kind of stuff because I want to help heal people. And no, I'm not your savior, and I don't want to be your savior, but I do want to give you tools. So, right. And so, oh, that's fine, Jen. We can actually work together and manifest that to be a real thing. Meaning, like, the more that you spend time on these conversations and stuff, we can give you tips and strategies that will get you to that point. And that's what I want for you as well, as one of many things. So again, let's come back to this. Emotions aren't the enemy. They never will be. And, don't see your emotions, even if you're angry. Actually be grateful, okay? So this is gonna sound very weird, but be grateful when you get angry. Be grateful when you get upset. Be grateful when you get pissed off. Why? Because they're arrows. Emotions are arrows, and they're showing you what you believe about something. And some of those things you may wanna believe. Like, you wanna believe that people should respect you, right? And so I want to encourage you to stop vilifying, and if you're emotionally sensitive, right, then don't think, okay, I'm something. Even when I just said, hey, you might be using that as a way to protect yourself, don't take that as an insult. Don't take that as a way in which to, right, and I can answer that at the end for sure, Red. That's not an aspiration for me. But I have won money, and I've won quite a bit of money, but it didn't happen through the lottery. And so, but for me, I don't want to win from the lottery. So that for me, that's not a desire, right? So, and I've even healed myself from ever needing to go get surgery and all this kind of stuff. So yes, I do have stories like that, and one day I will actually share that in one of my videos. But I'm more interested in your stories and in helping you guys out, right? And so, so back to this. If you are analytical enough, which means if you take the time to actually say, okay, rather than feeling bad about this, whether I've used my emotions as a way to self-defend, whatever it is, have I done that? And is there a reason why I keep holding on to emotions? Is there a reason why this story seems so strong, right? And so on and so forth. And again, if you're an emotional empath, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It just means that you are more in tune with your emotions. Okay, but just know that emotions themselves are filters. And when I say filters, I don't mean just emotional filters as in I'm feeling this and it's telling me something. I mean filters as in ways to see the world. Okay, every emotion is a filter and a perceptive lens, right? Like glasses. And so again, yes, you do want to get to the point where you can control and guide and, be aware of them. but you don't want to feel bad about them. That's why Neville says, don't spend a second in regret. Okay, why? Because then you're still living the old story. So then let's say, for example, let's put some flesh on this. And then we're going to talk about emotional dysphoria. And then I'm going to break down a tip for you from science, okay? So, let's say that you're having a bad day, or that you're trying to manifest something and you felt like you screwed it up. Okay, so the temptation is going to be like, yeah, but look at this. Yeah, but look at this. Yeah, but look at this. Okay, that's the temptation. You're going to want to keep repeating it and repeating it. Now, remember, human identity, or a state, as Neville calls it, right, is just habit. You keep reinforcing it, and then you get dopamine for it, which means you're literally getting rewarded for telling an old story because you repeated it. Because dopamine is also an expectation neuromolecule. What that means is that every time you keep telling the old story, like an addict, you're going to keep coming back to it. Okay? And yes, I am saying that every human on this earth, including Neville, including Jesus, if they ever lived, right, was an addict to stories. Okay? And that's because your brain is an addict to stories. All right? And so you got to break the addiction. And so again, we're going to talk about that in about 5 minutes. So, again, let's go back to this example. Let's say you're trying to manifest somebody or into your life, and you accidentally sent a wrong text, or you accidentally sent, something that you're like, oh shit, like I screwed it up, or whatever it is, right? Are you with me so far? So, and then you freak out. Who said? So Abdullah, who was a mentor of Neville and many others, including Joseph Murphy, right? Really stops Neville in his tracks. Okay. And don't worry, you haven't missed anything in terms of the technique, Jen. Welcome back. And so again, what you want to do is, back to this example, is Abdullah was talking to Neville, and Neville was telling the story of how he went third class or he was going to go for third class back to Barbados, right? And so thanks, Music. And in that story, Abdullah shuts him down. Abdullah is like, who told you? Now, that's a technique. You can use that as a technique. So when you say, oh, I've screwed up, yeah, but who just told you? Because right now, when you just read that story and you just put yourself into a circle of regret, who told you that? I didn't tell you that. Your imaginary friend didn't tell you that. The guy on the TV didn't tell you that. Your pastor didn't tell you that. The book didn't tell you that. You told you that. So guess what? You can also untell you that. I know that's not a word, but what I want to do is have you realize that you're telling yourself the story. Then you're not only telling yourself a story, you're then connecting the dots that aren't even there. So that's really what Abdullah was telling Neville. Stop connecting dots that aren't there. That's what regret is. You're connecting dots from one story to another story to another story to the point where you get depressed. Okay? And that's what regret is. You are regretting, which means you are connecting dots that don't exist. And because you are telling yourself that they exist, then you feel it with the emotion, which is a perceptive lens or a way to see things. And then the more you rehearse it, Neville says it hardens into fact. So another way of saying that is it becomes a way to perceive the world. Then you don't only just live in regret. You start thinking, I'm a person to regret. Meaning anybody who interacts with you is what? Is what? They will look at you as unworthy. Because if you regret not only an action, but you regret yourself, then you start to feel unworthy. And then neuroscience research shows the more you rehearse unworthiness, the more that you get to the point of victim thinking. Like basically, I can't get out of this loop. Okay? Are you with me so far? There is a way out. And if you're still listening, write that down. There is a way out. I know I sound like I'm doing a church service, but I mean, like, welcome to Jesus. All right. But anyhow, okay. So, sorry. So, all right. Now let's jump from there to emotional dysphoria. What if you don't feel anything? Because a lot of people say, well, what if I can't feel anything? Like, right. What if I don't muster up enough emotional energy? Remember, emotions do not and will never manifest. Emotions are better understood as a fuel to your beliefs, okay? And so are the thoughts. The thoughts and emotions are only telling you one of two things, like we've already said. They're either telling you the story that you keep telling yourself that's limiting, or they're telling you who you're going to become. Because really, this is all about becoming, but you're doing it here. And here is always now, right? And so you have to keep telling that story until it becomes the strongest story ever. That's where you condition yourself. You know, Neville actually used the word habit. And habit what? According to research today, does anybody know how long it takes for a habit to actually solidify? Anywhere from 66 days to 294 days. Go ahead and fact check me. By the way, I'm always open to fact checking, okay? So again, that means you have to create a spirit of patience and a spirit of romanticization and a spirit of fun as you begin to unfold and unravel this work. Yes, you can manifest small stuff or whatever I don't like the word big and small, but you can manifest stuff every day, right? And we are. That's called life, right? But if you don't have somehow some sort of emotional feeling, that's fine, because this is about conviction. And that goes back to what Neville was saying about feeling. Feeling isn't about the emotion. Feeling is about your interpretation of the emotion. Or another way in which he says it is conviction. Are you rehearsing this emotion over and over and over? Are you repeating it enough? And he says it's about frequency. Right? And I actually interpret frequency in his understanding in two different ways. Okay. And then we're going to talk about this technique. Okay. So please stay on. But like basically, frequency for me means two different things. Yes, frequency means the more you repeat it, the more that you rehearse it, the more that you practice, because this is the stage world, right? This is the stage world. Okay. This is where you get to practice everything out here. Okay. And so frequency means the more that you rehearse the new feeling, right? And this is for those bigger issues that seem sticky. Okay. You rehearse the new self, and check out my video on loyalty. And that's yet another great tip that I think you could take with you, because you can use it analytically. How am I giving my time, my behavior, my emotions, my thoughts, my words, right? Okay. Actually, so Jen, it's very interesting that actually is taken from a 1970 magazine. So this is my field, by the way. So I've studied human habit making for 8 years, right? And so that's actually taken from a magazine article, okay, from the 1970s. And that was actually told how long it would take for somebody who had facial reconstructive surgery after an accident, how long it would take for them to actually notice themselves again or to recognize themselves again. But if you look it up, it actually takes anywhere from 66 to 294 days, right? And why? Because the habit has to hook up here, right? It has to hook up to the prefrontal cortex. And where does regret happen? In the prefrontal cortex, which is where your identity is, right? And so keep that in the back of your mind, right? And it's okay for some of this to take time. Abdullah said, like I said earlier, right? Some people don't realize how long it takes to change habits. And he even says this. He goes, sometimes it would actually take a while to manifest what you want. Now, people hear that and they hear discouragement because they think that they can't, let's say, manifest an SP, or that they can't. You can manifest anything while you're healing. And in fact, I encourage all of my coaching clients to do that. Right? And that's what my coaching program is about, teaching people how to do that simultaneously. Okay. So then you are healing. So you are active, right? You are healing all of those limiting beliefs. Okay. And that's Abdullah, the guy who flipping spent time with JP Morgan and Rockefeller and all these American greats, right? So again, back to this. If you're not feeling emotions, it's okay. It's rehearsing the conviction, which means the belief that you are that person. And remember, belief doesn't mean belief. That's why I want you to go watch my video on loyalty. Belief is a series of different things that you can do it here and out here, right? That create an intimate connection between your outer mind and your inner mind, right? So again, inner self or subconscious and conscious mind. Okay. Are you with me? So again, here's a technique. Okay. And this is from, the training in NLP. All right. So this is a very, very powerful one. In fact, I'm going to give you two. Okay. So what you want to do is, if you watch any of my other NLP videos, you'll probably have access to what I'm about to say partially. So this is called the swish effect, right? And so it's SWISH, yes, like the, Katy Perry song, swish, swish, bish, whatever it is. So anyhow, it is like that, but it has nothing to do with basketball. So what I want you to do is I want you to take two scenes, okay? Right now, though, we're going to focus on one scene. This is the scene of regret, okay? And I want you to sit there, and I want you to do this after the video or during the video or tomorrow, whenever you're hearing this, okay? And I want you to create the scene, Now, this is going to sound counterintuitive because we learned to fear, like, oh my gosh, seeing scenes that are negative. But don't worry, that's not what's happening. I want you to create the scene that caused regret. And I want you to feel everything, even to the point of amplifying those emotions, okay? I want you to feel the anger, the pain, the rejection, all of those things. I want you to just pour it into that scene. And I want you to make the scene as real as possible, okay? And imagine as you're experiencing the scene from first person, that you have a knob at the lower right, and you're gonna amplify, actually three. So you're gonna amplify the sounds, you're gonna amplify the emotions, right? And you're gonna amplify the details of like colors and all of this kind of stuff, okay? And that's gonna be the scene that you're gonna wanna relive, okay? Don't worry. What I want you to begin doing though, is I want you to begin taking then, I want you to use the knob that has color, turn it down, remove the color. Do it slow, do it fast, however you want, but imagine you actually feeling the ridges on the knob that you're using, okay? So make it as real as possible. Turn the color down first, right, until it's black and white. There's no color, okay? Then I want you to use the second knob, turn down the sound, okay? Turn down the sound, and then the third knob is turn down the emotion. Okay, are you with me? Then what I want you to do is I kind of want you to put it over to the side, okay? This may take some mental practice to do this, but what you want to do is you want to put that image to the side, maybe see it, and then start pushing it away. Like, not even physically, but just watch it slowly melt, like move away, move away, move away, move away, right? Then what I want you to do is I want you to do and take now another scene. This is your ideal scene. What would it have been like? What would you have loved it to be? What would you have loved this person to say? What would you have loved the human resources person to say? You're hired, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the situation is, I want you now to imagine that picture, right? And I want you to still have the three knobs, right? The color, the sound, and the emotions. And I want you to actually amplify that, right? Okay, yes, 100%, Jen, right? And I want you to essentially create this scene and make it as vivid as possible, as detailed as possible. Create all the things that would make it yours, right? If you have like a favorite cup or favorite drink or whatever it is, favorite action, I want you to create this scene from the first person, not the second person. You're not watching yourself, right? And so you're doing it, but I still want you to imagine the three knobs at the bottom, okay? And so, and I still want you to have that one that didn't go the way that you wanted it to go, okay? But in the background, and start and slowly moving away on its own. You don't have to push it away, right? And it's black and white. There's no sound. There's no nothing. There's no emotion, anything. Okay, and I kind of want you to just see it slowly moving away. And then what I want you to do is you build the new picture. Build the new picture. It's now moving it towards you. But now I want you to use all three knobs again. This time, rather than turning it down, turn the sound up. Turn the color up. Turn the emotions up. Okay, and then I want you to keep turning those knobs up, turning those knobs up, turning those knobs up, okay? To the point where it almost feels like too much, okay? And then turn it up again, okay? And I want you to amplify this new story, okay? Then once you feel that, take this, watch this. This is actually the technique, but don't do it until you feel this feeling, okay? I want you to take your thumb, and I want you to take your index finger or your first finger like this. You see what I'm doing? You don't have to press it until it bleeds, but put a little bit of like pressure on it, and then give yourself the action again. Every time you repeat it and you feel the good emotion, press it down. Every time you do it again, so do this 4, 5, 10, 100 times, whatever it is, how many times it takes you to repeat it, okay? And then what I want you to do is I want you to do it again. Now, if you've done that in the morning, do it again at night. Okay, do it for about 5 to 7 days, and I guarantee you, and then by the way, anytime that old event comes up, press your fingers together. So throughout your day, and again, use Neville's technique, I remember when. I remember when, because why? Because you just created a memory. That scene isn't just a scene, it's a memory that you can now point to every time that regret wants to point its ugly head up, right? And so then what you're doing is you're hardwiring it by creating this anchor, okay? So again, use that anchor as a way in which to, and by the way, you can use that with any emotion. Let's say you have to go do a TED Talk, or you want to go do stand-up like me, or whatever it is, right? Then you end up creating confidence. And so this can work with any emotion that you want. And again, the way in which you would do that for any scene, whether it be regret or you just want to create, you would still do the same thing, but you would only press these two together when you feel that emotion and when you feel the positive set of emotions, right? And you do that, by the way, throughout the day. And then lo and behold, when anything ever comes up and you need confidence, and it doesn't even have to be any of those examples that I did, you press those two. And the cool thing is you won't look weird, because check this out. You're just holding those two fingers down right here at the side, and you could do it anywhere you go. Nobody's going to watch your fingers. No, people are watching you, right? So don't become self-conscious about it, right? So again, this is one of many techniques I teach in my coaching program, so definitely check that out. But, I really, really do hope that this helps. Again, usually when you guys ask me questions, I do try to get on within 2 or 3 days and try to create a video around it, because I believe in what I do and I'm good at what I do. But I also believe that you're good at what you do. And I believe that you can use this information to get you whatever it is that you want. Okay. So thank you all so much for jumping on. Thank you for all of the hearts. I see all the hearts. Those are awesome. Thank you for all the emojis. Thank you for, all the likes, and please share this with at least one person today, because I do believe that this can help them. So, much love to you all. Be safe in the world. And I will jump on again. Also, what's really cool is if you're still here, let me know what days and times work best for you. Because I know people are from different time zones, for me to go on live. And if it ends up being like 2 different times, then I'll just do it over 2 different days, right? But I do want to go live regularly now. So let me know in the comments or get a hold of me. And my email is on my bio. So check that out as well. But thank you all so much, right? Much love to you all. Be safe in the world. Manifest great things, because that's what you deserve. So thank you again, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.